Good evening. My name is Brian Davis, and I'm a graduate history student at Liberty University. While there's much myth that surrounds history, there is also many unknown facts. One such work that examines historical person from the period of the American Revolution is Laurel Thatcher Ulrich's work, How Betsy Ross Became Famous. Many historians become so involved in trying to disprove or prove parts of a story, they miss the greater implications of the story. The story in and of itself is also history. The value gained from the story has its own history. And this is true of who I'll be speaking of today, Margaret Corbin. Margaret Corbin is the first known American female soldier wounded in action. Margaret Corbin was born in Franklin County, Pennsylvania on November the 12th, 1751. While she was just 5 years old, her father, Robert Corbin, was killed by Indians, and her mother was carried away by Indians, never to be seen again. Young Margaret was sent to live with her mother's brother until she met and married John Corbin in 1775. John Corbin was a Virginian that came just from the area just north of Charlottesville. John and Margaret settled in Pennsylvania, and when the war was starting up, he joined the company of Pennsylvania Artillery under Captain Thomas Proctor. When New York was attacked by General Sir William Howe, Washington called for help from the other colonies. The Pennsylvania Artillery was one of those units that answered the call for help. The colonists sank ships in the Hudson River to prevent the British from coming up the Hudson. But the British were able to use gunpowder in order to destroy the scuttled ships and allow those ships, their ships, to gain access to the area around Manhattan. General Howe landed troops, and with the help of the Hessian mercenary troops led by Lieutenant General Wilhelm Freiherr von Enkhuizen und Kniphausen, and information supplied by one of the first major American traders, William Demont, Fort Washington, in that area around Manhattan, was attacked on November the 15th, 1776. And the Hessians attack that last redoubt. And at that time, Margaret Corbin was standing beside her husband, and he was killed. And a large number of Americans were taken prisoner in this action. But some of those men would later talk about Margaret, and they would tell what happened after Margaret's husband was killed. Margaret stepped up and filled his position. She began manning the artillery piece herself and continued to fire on the Hessians and the British as they approached their position. And Margaret was injured severely, and her left, well, I don't know which arm it was, but she had an arm that was nearly severed, and she had a severe laceration to her chest. And when the Hessians found her laying amongst the ruins of the men that they had bayoneted after taking those positions, they treated her injuries, and she was able to recover enough to leave after signing a parole saying that she would not fight against them again. And according to an article in the General Advertiser, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, published September the 5th, 1791, it read, "Female heroism rewarded." It was an extract from the Journals of Congress for July the 6th, 1779. And they quoted from that journal, and they said, "Resolves that Margaret Corbin, who was wounded and disabled in the attack on Fort Washington, while she heroically filled the post of her husband, who was killed by her side, serving a piece of artillery, do receive during her natural life, with the continuance of the state disability, the 1/2 of the monthly pay drawn by a soldier in the service of the States, and that she now received out of the public stores 1 complete suit of clothes, or the value thereof in money." And Margaret was placed in what they call the Corps of Invalids at West Point, where she remarried in 1782 after the war. And after the war, she tried to get a full pension, which was denied to her. Although they did increase her liquor rations, and that did not help her at all. She drank excessively, and she suffered from probably what would be considered post-traumatic stress disorder at this time, because her mood was described as erratic, and she died January the 16th of 1800. She was buried in an unmarked grave. Now, what was assumed to be her remains was disinterred and removed to the cemetery at West Point. And there's a monument to her at Fort Tryon Park, which ironically is named after Governor Tryon, in New York City. Margaret Corbin was the first woman to shed blood in the cause of American freedom, is what we believe. While many other women followed their husbands into the battles of the Revolutionary War, and many gave patriotic service in other ways, Margaret Corbin stands out for her service to her country, and she will always be remembered for that. And may God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.